Hey folks, so we're back here again tonight. I say tonight, I do these things usually somewhere between midnight and 2 in the morning. So anyway, we're here tonight with the sketch that's in the last video that that I put together, and pardon me. Here you see the finished pencils from that last video. So if you haven't watched that, just take a look around our YouTube page, or I'll post a link here to it so you can kind of backtrack if you ran into this one first. So anyway, what we're going to do now is pick up with inks on this concept piece. So it's just kind of character sketch, less of a concept piece than a character sketch, but sometimes you got to spend time just drawing the characters, a little bit of repetition, kind of get your hands more familiar with them before you tear into doing an actual book. So which the character here, for those who may not be familiar yet, this is Apocalypse Girl. She's the lead character in the Apocalypse Girl graphic novel that we're working on, and should be releasing via Skystorm Studios, their publishing efforts and so on, sometime next year. So anyway, let's jump into this. So we're in Manga Studio 5 EX, and I'm going to start up a new layer. We're going to set that to monochrome, and I'm going to turn my pencil layer to this this blue here by hitting the layer color. And that just makes it feel more like the old, the non-repro blue type pencils that I'm used to drawing traditionally, or working with traditionally, and then doing my own pencils with those, and then inking over that. So then I'll turn my transparency down to around somewhere. I've got 38. Was that 38 there? So anywhere between 30 and 40, I think lightens it up enough that kind of lets your eyes, you can see what's there pretty clearly, but then the ink will really feel nice and strong. So I'm going to set my colors to just black and white, and my blending mode for my ink layer to multiply. That way, instead of using an eraser, I'll hit the X key to switch back and forth between black and white. And since it's multiply, the white will basically show as transparent. So anytime I need to make a correction, or I want to, ink with white or whatever, I like to have only black showing on the layer so I can see through things. So anyway, multiply is most of the time if I'm inking, I'll do keep my layer mode set to multiply. So let's just jump right in here. Some things that I have a tendency to do that are kind of holdovers from traditional illustration and inking. I kind of always had a habit of inking from the upper left-hand side to the lower, or upper left corner to the lower right corner, just because if you're right-handed, now if you're left-handed, you'll flip that. You'd go from the upper right to the lower left, and the reason is your arm's going to pass across the page. And if you work in this order and you try to think that way relatively consistently, then you run less of a risk of accidentally rubbing your hand or arm through your ink and screwing everything up. So anyway, I'm going to jump on in here. So here I have a pen set up that kind of emulates the feel of what I always preferred, which I was never much of a brush inker. I always preferred crow quill pens and mapping tips, especially a Hunt's number 5. So I've kind of toyed around with my settings until I created something that really felt similar to that for me. So Just going through here, laying in some basic kind of feathering strokes. And I've got a couple different pens that kind of emulate the feeling of different traditional pens. Like this one has a much harder sort of feel. It's like a much more rigid type of crow quill. So here, if I wanted to get really thin lines, I can go with that. And it's almost technical pen, but it's like a technical pen that can flare. I was never big on technical pens. So the G pen is one of the defaults in Manga Studio, and it's kind of the basis for my own for the one I have listed as my main pen. I've kind of amped up the sensitivity level on it a little bit. So just going to work through there, come back and cross my way through some of this. I'm feeling it's one of those things that happens from time to time is you know, the pressure on things will feel a little different to me from time to time. I guess it just depends on, you know, any number of factors. So it's nice to be able to just pop in there and make a quick change to that. So right now I'm feeling kind of heavy-handed, and I don't want to end up blasting the page with you know, with big globs. So I can increase the basically the stiffness of it, kind of lowering the pressure sensitivity. So I had to push a little bit harder. It's funny, I always hate, like in a hair design that's parted down the middle, I always hate that part where you're trying to create that sense of where the different hair volumes meet. It's an area that I actually kind of labor over a lot, but you know, I guess everyone has their little areas that bug them. So here you can see I'm switching to my white, so I can come back in and kind of refine some of this a bit. We'll zoom back out. It's not too bad. It's funny, one of the things that you can get kind of caught up in doing this stuff digitally is that since you can zoom in way closer and see things in a way that you really can't do with traditional work, it's really easy to fall to this temptation to think, oh, I'm going to work, you know, up really close and all this kind of business, but it really doesn't do you that much good. So here's one of the features of ink that I just love in here, is being able to turn on this post correction. Kind of allows me to let these lines smooth out a little bit. So I've got a bit much on right there, so I'm going to play around with this until I find what feels right for me in this particular session. So this kind of stuff, I actually change my settings pretty frequently, because, you know, it's kind of funny. I mean, one day you might feel really energetic and you're hitting things really hard with your hands, and then another day you might be working, you know, inking, drawing, and I don't know, for whatever reason you could be a little bit tired or whatever, and things feel like they're a little harder to push or whatever. So, you know, it sounds kind of silly, but you know, when you're doing tons of this stuff, those kind of factors actually add up and can really become a slowdown and a frustration. So, you know, it's nice. It's a nice benefit of being digital to be able to make little changes to that allow you to keep your hands fresh while you're working. Kind of lets you, you know, keep on keeping on with it, without having to actually physically go change out, you know, pen tips or ink types and things like that, or you know, just I don't know. There's just something about that I find I don't get as much hand fatigue or drawing fatigue sometimes working like this as I used to doing traditional artwork. So So there's that. Oh, so I want to come in here and just work my way back down through this. Give some of these roots here. I want to white some of this back out. Like I said, this is an area that I just, especially with female characters and male characters with long hair, I will labor over that area for some reason. But I think the results are usually worth it. Sometimes working in Manga Studio, if I feel like, if I don't feel like trying to get it by hand, you can take this this little tool here. It's in the figure. There's a tool here called Figure. I don't quite understand why they called it that, but whatever. It's actually the continuous curve tool. So there's straight line, curve, continuous curve. You can take this continuous curve and you can set it up to have different thicknesses and so on. You can set up how it tapers. So then you get this kind of spline on your screen. Which, if anyone's ever worked with Bezier curves, you'll recognize this. So you drop a few points like that, and you can see it wiggle around as I float my pen here. And then if I hit enter, you get this super clean line. So if you're wanting to make sure that you are exactly on something, you can just grab that, and it's you get this nice Bezier effect out of it. So it's just a one of the many tools that you can use working this way. I'm pretty fond of it for some of the more specific swirl lines that I might want to get. This is something that traditionally I would have used a French curve for. I've heard some people kind of have problems with kind of take this sort of purist attitude about using these kind of things. And frankly, honestly, at one point I was one of those people. For a long time I really was not into the idea of digital comic art. Even though I loved so much of the work from like Image that used digital coloring and so on, back when that stuff was first pioneered, the thought of computers for inking, that's not real inking. Well, that's kind of fallen by the wayside for me once I really got a hold of Manga Studio. I'm just going to bring these strokes on through here. Come back through and smooth some of it out here and there. Let's see how this pen's feeling. Switch back to my main pen here. It's funny, I can feel my hand starting to get kind of loosened up for this, so I'm going to go back and change my my pressure sensitivity again. There we go. And then zoom out just a bit. So today's been one of those production days where I've been doing mostly rendering and not a whole lot of drawing and sculpting, so it may take me a few minutes to kind of get loosened up for this. Hair is kind of a good place to start. Just these kind of strokes, I think after a while, you know, it lets your hand get kind of loosened up and into the flow of things. So, alright, that's coming together. So, go ahead and I'm going to ink straight through where that lock of hair comes, and then go back over it with white there. Of course, she's kind of a beaten and battered girl, so I like to give some little tick marks here and there sometimes. Also in my pencils, I didn't put the little face paint sort of thing that I like to do with her, where she has these little black marks that she'll have on her cheeks. We'll add those in later. So right now I'm just going to start defining this face. Okay. And this is really, I think, the easy part. This is also kind of the fun part, because that's really where the character comes together. So I don't really like those. I think I'm going to leave those out from what I did with the pencils. I'm going to turn off the post correction so it's a little less has less of a tendency to try to correct my lines for me. That way I can go in, and you find if you have that post correction turned on, when you try to do little tick marks and things, you know, it doesn't really like that. So just going to come in here and work in this eyebrow. And I'm going to go for kind of a very solid graphic approach to this. And here you can see I've switched off to my paint bucket tool, and I'm going to turn the close gap down just a little bit on it. Go ahead and work this other eyebrow in here. And I'm going to go a little bit loose with some of this. Hatch our way back in there. Then we can fill that in. Zoom out and check it out. There we go. So switch back to my pen and come in and define this eye. Get those eyelashes going out there. fill in all this. And if you notice, it's picking up some weirdness when I try to fill it in. It's because I have multiple referring turned on, so it's trying to fill in looking at the blue layer beneath. So I turn that off, and now it fills in much more smoothly. Come back in with some white and knock that eyelid just a tiny little bit right there. Then do a little bit of feathering in here. Come down with the bridge of the nose. And then we can fill that spot. Okay. I'll just kind of fan that out a little bit in there. Add some little details. And then I'm going to come back and follow this line right here to create her eyelash, her upper eyelash. Maybe come through with a few little white marks there to sort of break it up. Okay, zoom out, take a quick look. I'm digging that. So, I'm seeing right here where I want to kind of blend this back down and touch up along that cheek a bit. Okay. Let's get some nice thick to thin lines going on right there. Come back and just brush these back together. Zoom out and take a look at that. That's coming together pretty well. Now another way to do very defined lines like this one is to use a guide curve, which once I've filled in some of these hair strands back in this area, that's what I'm going to do to build up these hair strands that are out on the front layer, or kind of in the foreground the most, and that I really want to be super accurate with. So let's go ahead and work on fleshing in the rest of this, so then we can get to that interesting stuff where you can see some of the other tools, the curve tools in play. So I'm going to turn my post correction back on here. That way I can keep these lines nice and flowing keep that smoothness in them. So here we'll just fill that in. Oh, need to reset this so that multiple referring stays off. Okay. In this close, I'm going to turn that post correction off, back off. Okay. Now we're getting somewhere. Sometimes I like to switch it around and take a look at things from a different angle. So here we're going to come back and kind of pull some lines in. That's looking, I think, pretty livable. I think I'd like to get a little more density right in here. So I'll flip this back around and come back in with some white. Kind of restore a little bit of the feathering that was there. Alright. I always find inking to be a very hypnotic sort of thing. Meant to be holding my rotate key down. Thankfully there's undo. Okay. So now we're going to grab a ruler, which there's so many different things in here we can use. Here we go. Here are the rulers, and we want to use a curve ruler. Okay. And this works very similar to that stroke that I showed earlier. We'll plot these points following the shape that we want to ink in, very specifically. Then hit enter. You'll see this purple line appears, and now our ink will just flow right along that line. And I can be very, very specific with my pressure as it moves along that line. And then let's come back here. There we go. Then I can just take that same curve and move it and just edit it a little bit to finish out the next stroke that we want to draw in there on that hair. So there it is. Now come back in and follow it and stop. Okay. So then from there, if I want to add some little detail lines inside that, I can just use my arrow keys and I hit O on the keyboard to get my object selector, and then select it and hit the arrow keys to move it around to where I'd want it for another to draw another stroke in. So let's just do kind of a broken stroke down through here. Okay. Then we'll move it one more time and just repeat that process. I'll select it and delete it, and there you can see we've got that stroke drawn in just super clean. So then I like to sometimes select inside areas like this, and that allows me to have it masked off a little bit, so then I can come back in and finish dropping in these lines without worrying about having to try to keep from going over things that I already have there. So there's that. Pardon me. So let's take a look at it for a second without the blue layer. Okay, let's bring it back. So we'll zoom back out, get my pen. Pardon me. And I think I'm going to let myself kind of go a little bit crazier here, loosen up a little bit with it. Now that I've gotten through kind of showing some of the tools you can use for being sort of anal and very specific. So now I've got that area blocked in, and I'll come back down through here with a few strokes. I'm going to grab that area again. Okay, let's turn it. We can sort of make things match up a bit. Come down through and let the forms of the hair, the volumes that it has, kind of flow out from there. Sometimes I need to swing it around and come at it from a different angle. Then, really, if we want, we could complete some of these lines here and just build them up. It's just another approach I'm going to show after I clear this back out. If we add to our selection what's on the outside out here, just give it a second because it's got a lot to push through to grab all that. Okay, so now we can just ink straight through, and we'll keep these nice consistent lines. I'm going to take my lasso tool and deselect inside her face here so I don't screw that up. Okay, we don't need any of that selected anyway. So now we can just kind of get really loose with this. Make my brush a little bigger so I can get kind of some fatter, daggery sort of strokes out of it. I'm digging that. Digging that whole lot. And sometimes if I feel like this is getting too dense, I'll just come back through with some white. Work my way back through that. Okay, let's turn this a little bit more. And I'm going to go ahead and block in where I had this kind of shadow cast in here. Okay. Then we can take a lasso and just follow this out. We'll just grab this nice big section here. So now we've got this masked off and we can whip this hair out pretty quickly. So that's coming together. I'm going to turn on some post correction for a minute. I'm going to take some liberties with these lines. Something like this. I'll whoa. Here we go. Come back through with my white. Just kind of clean up those overlaps right there a little bit. Back through with some black. Just kind of connect these. Don't really like where that was headed. Clean up some of these lines a little bit right here. And again, I'm probably in way too close right now and starting to get really finicky over things that are probably so small when I zoom out that they're not going to matter much. So when I start to feel like I'm doing that, that's when it's probably time to zoom out and take a quick look. So, but before I do that, I want to come back through here and loosen some of this up with some white. Okay, so Let's take a look now. Let's fix our rotation. Sometimes it doesn't want to zoom very smoothly when I'm doing a screen cap like this, so you have to give it a second to kind of catch up. It definitely doesn't like it when a selection with the marching ants is going on there, so there we go. Pretty happy the way this is coming out. Through here and add some white to break up the hardness of that shadow. That way it's it doesn't feel like there's something solid right by your cheek. Looks like I've got a little bit of cleanup to do right here. Too much post-correction. There we go. That's smoothed out the way I want. So let's finish up this little hair volume right here. I'll work from the outside in, that way I might be able to get some selections out of it and then fill in inside the selections. It makes it a little bit easier to keep things clean. So see, now I can select that stuff. And then just come in here and run this stuff all the way through here. It's nice to be able to just draw through like that. It's very similar to using Frisket if you're an airbrush person, you know, using masks and stuff like that for airbrush painting, but it's ink, so it's kind of cool. So I like the way that helps really define those different planes of movement that are going on in the hair. Builds a lot of depth in something that, you know, might otherwise not get it just by using those masks and inking through. Turn my post correction back on. Around very smooth forms like a woman's chin and jaw, I think that post correction is your friend. So I want these to be very strong yet soft lines, so that it, you know, has that, just kind of conveys the character properly. And we'll down through here, fill that in. I'm going to turn off my post correction, come back through and just add these little lines here to kind of shade that back out. She is, even though she should be pretty, she's also, she lives in she's Apocalypse Girl. It's post-apocalyptic setting, so there should be some breakup and some dirtiness to her here and there. So then I'm going to come in and do one of the really fun parts. One of the things I really kind of like inking is rough fabric, because I can let my hand get kind of jiggly with it. Create that sense of texture, which I really like that when you're looking at a character who's typically pretty smooth. So then we can let our lines get a little rougher here. Also, I've got the strap right here from the gas mask, so just feather some of that in. Let that work itself out. Okay. Rotate this, and there we go. Fill that stuff in. Get the rest of the tattering here on the edge of her sleeve. That works pretty well. Okay. Now, turn my post-correction back on. Get her shoulder in here. And then I'm going to go ahead and catch, whoop, a little too heavy-handed there, catch the rest of the arm flowing down from that. I'll turn it back off and add some little marks and things here that kind of shade it and help give her that dirtiness that I've mentioned a couple times already. Let's turn post-correction back on. Work in some of these larger hair forms that'll let us kind of block this out, so we can then get a selection out of it. Okay, a little bit of white right there. Not really digging how that's turning out, so I'm going to erase all of that. Come back in and approach that from a slightly different angle. There we go. Go back and follow my original pencils a little more closely. Most of the time I pencil much more loosely than this, since I end up inking on my own stuff. If someone else is going to ink over me, then I'll do tight pencils like this. But most of the time I go pretty loose, because if I'm inking myself, I kind of know where I'm going with it. But since this one, we did a video of it, I decided to go a little tighter. Alright, that should fill us in pretty nicely. Yes, perfect. Awesome. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit so that my strokes on this run a little longer. Oop. Somewhere I messed up and switched over to my pencil. I don't want the pencil, I want the pen. There we go. I love being able to just start a line, start a stroke from somewhere before it really should start, and just pull past the masking. Okay, let's turn this a little bit more. Move my page over a bit. Okay. Oop. There we go. Now, I'll make a new selection here. Let's see if we... Probably, there we go. Yes, cool, awesome. So we can go right through that. We keep that little crosshair there. Those hairs flowing over. It keeps that depth that I love. Alright. Let's turn off my post correction for a minute. Just add some smaller lines in here. And back in, just finesse that back out so that we keep those little layers going there. I think I also want to add some thickness right here so that it sort of tells your eye that that connects. Oh. If you can hear that, that is Ed making his appearance in this video. He's the office cat here. So let's return this back to its upright position. Okay. Starting to build way too many little hairs right there. Okay, I'm liking that. So since I'm thinking of the light source being kind of from this side, I'm not going to go quite as far with the details on the hair over here. Finish this big lock of hair up. Try to think of these lines right here in a way that will help create that sense of tension where the hair is pulled back behind her ear. There's that. this over. Kind of give ourselves some little bits on either side of this lock. Maybe consider blending that in a little bit. Actually, I think I want to do it like this. Let's take some white, create a little bit of intersection there. Okay. Sometimes you just gotta fill some stuff in and kind of go back over it. Okay. No. Let's back that up a little bit. There we go. I think I mentioned in the last video that I actually get really nervous doing these. Nobody wants to have people watch them fumble around and make mistakes. And I definitely do my fair share of fumbling on this kind of stuff, but you just got to keep doing it. Keep at it. Don't be afraid of making little mistakes. Don't be afraid to go back and correct yourself. There we go. It's getting more like what I'm picturing for that. And once you get the hang of drawing in here, the tools are really straightforward, really simple, easy to use. I find Manga Studio probably has the most shallow learning curve of most of the software that we use here in the studio from day to day. Most of the folks who are familiar with our business here at 6S1 Media probably know us through 3D. We've done a lot of 3D work down through the years. So with that, we mostly use Maya and ZBrush. We develop a lot of content for Poser, another piece of software from the folks who publish Manga Studio. So it's actually because of Poser that we ended up getting introduced to Manga Studio, and it just helped me kind of find my way back into doing comics. That's what I started out at. I was about 19 years old when I started drawing comics. I was either stubborn enough or fortunate enough, however you want to look at it, to end up doing it for a living for a few years before I blundered my way into 3D. But comics have always been my first love. And Manga Studio is really, something about it has just enabled me to kind of bridge together. There's ways that you can use 3D content inside Manga Studio, and since we do a lot of that, there are times when I'll throw a 3D model down inside here, something that we've made. Lots of times I'll sculpt a 3D. I'll do a 3D sculpt of characters that I'm going to use in a story or a set of illustrations or whatever, and and then bring my sculpt into Manga Studio and use it as a reference, or sometimes I'll even rig them so that they could be posed and animated and whatnot, and then I'll bring that in. I'll pose it and bring that in and work with it that way. There's just so many different ways to create your artwork inside here. I mean, it's just amazing. And since we've done a lot of 3D, and that's kind of what our business primarily does. I mean, it's 3D right now is what still pays our bills, and it's something that I really enjoy. So being able to kind of have whole new sets of tools that let me bridge between 3D and traditional, or close to traditional, comic book artwork, it's really neat. There's actually a lot of 3D in some of the Apocalypse Girl pages that we already have up on our website at 6s1.com, and the really funny part is most of the time people can't really tell what is 3D and what isn't because of the way it's being used, which I like that. Okay, let's go ahead and get this eye out of the way while we're here. I would also just say too that I think right now Smith Micro has a deal going on for Manga Studio for like $60 or something. It's crazy. And while it's not the EX version, with the nifty story mode and all those kind of tools that are in there, they're kind of geared towards helping out with, you know, the full book production. You could probably still make a book with just straight Manga Studio, and for $60 it's just an amazing tool. I can't believe that it's as inexpensive as it is. Just scrub around here a little bit. That in. Maybe a little bit more coming out here. Okay. Whoa. Not sure what happened there. Looks like I grabbed my blue layer and moved it accidentally, so I'll watch about that. Nope. Cancel back out of that. Started to make a selection there, but then realized that I didn't have it closed up. So now that that's closed up, I can make a selection here and much more easily finish that little area out. Okay, so there's that. I'll turn on my post correction. I'm going to zoom out too so that I get a longer movement of my hand coming down the neck right there. Selection here and here. Come on, there we go. Oop. Hold the shift key and I'll add that little area to my selection. Alright. That gets that all finished. Okay, now we're going to move in here and work on this, on the lips. So I think I want to have my stabilization turned on in post correction. That's a bit much. It's a bit much. There we go. Redo that little bit right there. Throw these little tick marks in here that sort of give her a bit of a grimace. Not too much, don't want her to be kind of too vicious, but you know, she should kind of walk a line between being a girl, you know, I mean, you know, she's like 19 or so, although her age is kind of nondescript in my mind. I see her as kind of being around, you know, 18, 19 years old, so I want her to make sure that I walk this line between her still being a girl but also being this kind of badass. So okay, swing this around. Add some fullness here just by working some of these lines a little bit thicker. Feather it all through there. Okay. I'll leave that little edge right there. Kind of like what that does to it. Okay. Come back in with some white. Maybe knock up a little bit more lip volume over that, over the teeth. There we go. Let's take a look at that from a distance. Almost. Almost there. Okay. I'm going to come in and add her little kind of war paint stuff here. Those that way. Let's do it a little bit differently. Give a little sense of cheek volume there with that too. Okay, there's that. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Build a little bit of that white right there. Okay. It's funny, it reminds me a little bit right now of, what's her name? Angela Gassau from the band Arch Enemy. If there's any metalheads listening to this, you might be familiar. So, just realized it kind of reminds me of her, and now I'm like, oh crap, you know, is that channeling Angela Gassau when I designed the character. I've probably got her name wrong. I'm sitting here. It's funny. I'm horrible with names, so you know, it's probably some metalhead listening who's going to be like you bastard. You know, how could you get her name wrong? You know. All right. Straps worked in. Alright, I think I want to add some lines down her neck here too, just give a little bit of volume there. Back to one of my favorite parts, the rough cloth stuff. It's funny too, you know, doing this when you're trying to talk about it and let folks see the process from start to finish on a piece of artwork. It always takes so much longer than if you're just doing it. So it's kind of weird, I think. Well, I guess that makes sense because you know you'll slow down a little bit. You maybe be a little more apprehensive about what you're doing. Yeah, because you want to get it right. You don't want people to be seeing you fumble around too much. So you tend to slow down, talk about the tools a little bit. While I'm thinking about that too, you know, if anyone watches this and you have questions about anything here, you know, the software, techniques, anything like that, or you know, questions about the characters that I'm working on, since you know they're all from my own books that we're working on. Don't hesitate to pop a comment or a question little section below the videos here. And I'll do my best to answer them as quickly as possible. So let's come through here and kind of get all scrubby with this stuff, because it's all tattery stuff anyway, so I don't mind that being rough. Okay. Come in here and do some little bit of cloth rendering there. Start getting some folds and some little tension creases. Okay. That's funny. I think I've been on this for about an hour now, and starting to hit a stride where I can feel my hands loosening up, and everything's kind of starting to come together where I don't feel the need for guides and things quite as much, and that's nice. Although that little line right there is going to fight with me. So let's just approach him from a different angle. There we go. Okay. And let's give these a little more strength, a little more weight. It looks like here at the bottom of the page we have ourselves a breast. So let's go ahead and deal with that. Let's turn that post-correction business off. Okay. And go ahead and kind of complete some lines right here that will fill this volume in. So now I can make a selection and swing around here and do a little bit of cloth work from inside this mask. Clear that selection. Come back and just kind of solidify that a bit. Then I'm going to come through here and give some little wrinkle ticks coming off the outside here, just to give that cloth form. Okay. Then we have right in here the bow where her shirt's tied, all country girl style. kind of letting myself get a little bit messy with that, because that's all tattery kind of clothing anyway, so I don't mind. Okay. There's that. Let's come through here. Kind of flesh this out a little bit. Add some tatters. Let's define that arm a little bit right there. Then, no, don't like that. There we go. Yeah, that's where I wanted to go with that. Let's turn off the blue for a second. Yeah, I can work with that. Pretty happy the way that's coming. So let's go in and hit some of these shapes. Kind of start defining shapes on the mask. Complete some of this stuff. Just kind of bring it together, let it connect. Okay. Then swing around here. Get this clasp. Connect that. Make a selection out of that. We'll get the rest of this strap. Make a selection out of that. Then I'm going to fill this in a bit. Okay. Now, add another little claspy looking sort of thing there. And complete those strap lines. Pretty cool with that. Oop. There we go. Now I want to continue with these sort of lateral running lines here so that it keeps up the feeling we started further on out that strap. Okay. Alright. Now let's go in here and build up our shading. hatching and all that business on the big filter on the mask. Right. Not liking some of that, so I'm going to undo a little bit. There we go. That's more what I'm after. Come back in with some weight right there. That's a nice line. I like that line. Okay. That and that. I'm going to come back through and add these little hints of divots. Okay. So that gets that in there. I'm going to swing around here and get this this collar piece. In the home stretch on this thing. I want to add a little bit more to this. Just break it up a little bit. Okay. Some of these lines, little framework bits that are on the outside of the mask. Okay, there's that. Like to add these little thin lines down here. I think it helps kind of sell the idea of something being metallic. But then if they're not, if you're not using a guide, or if you're doing it traditionally using a French curve or masking of some kind or something, then adding those little lines like that just naturally is going to end up kind of wavy, which I think gives a nice worn feeling. Oh, and there's Mr. Ed returning. The crazy little office cat. Okay. So now swing on around this. Again, since this is being hit by the light source from high and to the right over here, we don't really have to complete all of those lines. So now Oh, I hear the kitty. Little Mr. Ed. So we're going to fill some of these in. Just want it to have this kind of ribbed sort of texture to it. Okay. So then I'm going to come through and feather these a bit now that I've got some volume in there for it. Don't like those. Okay. And kind of liking that. I want to add some down here with the white, so it kind of completes that feeling there. Then let's come back over and finish this guy up. Okay. Some lineage in here. Give that kind of chrome effect. Let's just kick all that back out. I want some nice clean lines right there. We're going to do the same thing here. And once more up here. Okay. I think that gets that area pretty well finished. So now I'm going to mask up. I'll pull a little trick here since I'm in multiply. If I draw in here next to this with white, you won't really be able to see it, but my wand will still stop there. So now I can come in inside that mask and use these quick little strokes. It's just going to meet the mask. So I think I'm going to thicken some of these up. Then come back through, a little bit of white. Okay. That works pretty well. Now we're going to do the same thing over here. I like doing this kind of stuff. It kind of takes me back to some of the lessons you'll find in Dynamic Light and Shade from Bernie Hogarth. That book is just amazing. You know, if you want to learn really strong sense of positive and negative and see some great examples of really simple but really strikingly powerful displays of light with ink, definitely have that book. Tubing, in my mind, is kind of something that's gotten really beat up, so we can go pretty rough with it. going to start out by defining these shapes here, which I don't really like the way that one's coming out. I want to keep the roundedness to it. I mean, even though I'm going rough with it so that it has that worn feeling, I want to keep a nice roundedness going. Okay. Then we'll come down here. There we go. So now we've got that all blocked in really solid. We can make selections for it. Before we do that, let's go ahead and finish up the rest of the actual mask. Pardon me. And same technique as before. I'm just going to throw these little strokes in here like this. I'm going to go kind of heavy so that that area feels like it's casting some shadow there. Okay. Then switch out to white. Break some of this up a bit. I'll smooth some of this out a little bit more. So it regains a bit of a bit more uniform, mechanical kind of feeling. Okay. Now, let's take care of, before we take care of the tubing, let's finish out the shirt. Having that masking in place is so handy. Okay. That. Come and kind of create another sense of folding right there. Turn the canvas a little bit so this is a little easier to get to. Alright. There's that. So now we can finish up with this tubing, and that'll bring us to a close. So we make a selection from inside the tubing and rotate this around. Then, oh, I lost my selection somewhere along the way. Bring it back. Ah, okay, let's hold the shift key, click, and get my selection back. I wonder why it keeps wanting to kill that selection. That is not cool. Okay, there we go. And one more section. Ah, good. Okay. Now, let's rotate the canvas just a little bit. I'm going to go with some heavy dagger strokes all the way down through here, but then kind of vary them from tube section to tube section. And turn this as I go so I can keep consistent with how the light should be playing across that. reselect this stuff here. It's not cool the way it keeps messing with my selections. No, I don't like that. I'm not real happy with what it's trying to do to me here. There we go. Let's grab that. Let's grab this. Okay. Oh, I slipped there and accidentally selected a color. Try not to do that again. Okay. Swing this around. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my blue layer. Actually, let's keep it on. I think I had some things in there I wanted to pay a little more attention to as I ink this. Yeah. Accidentally right-clicking there. If you right-click, it invokes the eyedropper, which will select my blue from the layer below, and I don't want that. So I'll make a mental note to change that in my preferences at some point, so that I don't keep having that little issue come up. So right. Add some tick marks along the way. Just give it that sense of wear and tear. I'm actually way faster as a penciler than I am an inker. So as soon as I start slinging ink, I kind of obsess over little things. But here we go. Here's this finished Apocalypse Girl piece. Kick out the blue line, and there you have it. Drink it in. So hopefully in the course of this, hopefully there's some information shared about, I don't know, inking, drawing, Manga Studio, all this kind of stuff that goes into this. Hopefully there's some stuff shared in this that is of value to some of the folks who watch this, and I'm assuming that if you're with me at this point after, an hour, I guess probably about an hour, hour and a half that this is running, then I'm assuming you got something out of it if you stuck around this long. And if you just jump to the end, well, consider running it back a little bit and seeing if maybe there's something of value in there for you. Like I said earlier, if you have any questions, if there's anything you want to know about, just talking about comics, comic art, art in general, Manga Studio, any of the software for this stuff, just anything like that, by all means, pop down into the comments section below this and let me know. Let's have a conversation, get started here. So anyway, thanks for watching, and hope you come back and watch again some of the other videos we have planned. Thanks.